Welcome to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success. Welcome to The Cap, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and I am here to introduce you to college admissions representatives and other professionals in the field of college admissions. Our purpose is to serve you, the students and parents, so that you may gain insight straight from the people who ultimately make the decisions. Regardless of whether you apply to a particular school being highlighted in a given episode, you should listen to all of them, as each guest will give you tremendous insight and advice on every aspect of the college admissions process, prompting you to come up with your own follow-up questions for when you visit campus or meet with a college admissions representative yourself. Don't forget to visit our website, www.collegeadmissionstalk.com, or the show notes of each episode to access the alphabetical list of all the colleges available with the related audio link to the right of each school. The alphabetical list provides you with on-demand access to all of the episodes so that you may listen whenever you wish. And if you want to receive links to episodes before they are released on the podcast, along with other related resources, please fill out the email opt-in form also available on our website and in the show notes of each episode. Lastly, please email me with any questions or comments at collegeadmissionstalk@gmail.com. So are you ready? Let's talk about it. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome back Megan Dorton, who's the Senior Associate Director at Purdue University. Megan was with us back on episode 74. Episode 74 received one of the highest overall downloads. Therefore, Megan was back with us for episode 144 during our Playback Wednesday series in the summer. Megan, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Hi, John. Great. Thank you so much for having me. I think I told you last time I did this that being on a podcast was a bucket list item. So I don't even know where a repeat appearance on a podcast should go. So thanks again for having me. So good to be here. Great to represent Purdue on the podcast.
Well, as you know, Megan, it's my honor and pleasure, especially Purdue University, as I know that there are so many students and their parents that want to hear this follow-up conversation, which is why you were back for Playback Wednesdays in the summer with so many overall downloads. So let's get right to it. Megan, we talked the last time that there is obviously a focus at Purdue regarding STEM fields, and you even shared with us some innovative programs such as your aerospace offerings and the many interdisciplinary opportunities, just to name a few. Can you give us an overview of some of your most popular programs and what's new since we last spoke in terms of your academics?
Yes, certainly. I don't know what's not new at Purdue, actually. So lots of big things going on. Our Daniels School of Business, so it's our rebranded Krannert School of Management, now known as the Daniels School of Business. They were rebranded throughout the summer, just recently brought on a new dean, Jim Bolliard from the Federal Reserve Bank out of St. Louis, is the new dean for the School of Business. He's a leading economist in the country. The Daniels School of Business also recently achieved a high-ranking jump. They're now number 21 in undergraduate business programs. So really excited about that. A top 10 operations management program in the School of Business. So lots of great things happening with that newly rebranded School of Business. Another thing, kind of breaking news, I'm sure some of you heard about the asteroid samples that NASA brought to Earth and now are headed to the Johnson Space Center. So a planetary sciences faculty member from Purdue, Michelle Thompson, she's an associate professor of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences. She's one of the first investigators. There are only 6 investigators for these samples initially.
Wow.
One of the first investigators and the only woman. So really
Awesome.
cool. Yeah, super exciting. was announced that our College of Education is starting a rural education center in our state. And I think in many states, we're seeing a really serious teacher shortage. So our School of Education has established this rural education center to help with that teacher shortage. So really exciting stuff with the College of Education. And then another thing that the university is really excited about is Purdue Computes, which is really a combination of all of the areas across our campus that bring together artificial intelligence and the kind of ever evolving interest in the country on chips, the societal impact of both artificial intelligence and chips here in the country. So computer science, electrical and computer engineering, computer and information technology, all of those things are coming together really for the university to provide global connections to advance semiconductor research, workforce development. So that's become a really big push here on our campus as well. So lots of stuff going on at Purdue. We're really excited. Last week, our ag and biological engineering major was ranked #1 in the country again. So across disciplines, both STEM and non-STEM fields, Purdue is really doing great things in the fields of research and innovation. So yeah, we're pretty proud and pretty excited about all that's going on here.
Well, that's terrific. A rebranded School of Business, updates with your College of Education, asteroids, computer science, and of course, lots of global connections. We appreciate the overview. Megan, I also read that your retention rate is well over 90%. And of course, the national average is only approximately 70%. What is your secret in terms of keeping students happy and wanting to return to campus year after year? And what else can you tell us about life on and off your campus that adds to this great statistic?
Yeah. It's hard to say exactly because I think every student is just so unique and what's important to them and their experience and what helps keep them on campus and engaged. There's so many factors. But I do think one of the biggest things is that the university is just laser focused on our students and really student success and making sure that students have the support that they need. An example, which is really cool. So the university just last year created an artificial intelligence system. It's called Arthur. And they started using it in an industrial engineering class. So they use this artificial intelligence essentially as a stand-in for a teacher's assistant or a TA. And so
Wow.
it allows students to get in the moment, essentially, assistance with whatever problem they're trying to solve. And they continue to train Arthur every semester after, they can evaluate based on student feedback how to improve that artificial intelligence for the TA. So that's one example of just a, really cool innovation and really super student centric, student focused. Our orientation programs, so Purdue Student Success and orientation programs, host an amazing summer orientation program for students transitioning to the university. And it just covers all the important topics, both social and emotional health, physical health, campus resources, so that when students do need that, they don't always know it when they're integrating into the campus community. But when they do need it, I always say students can kind of reach back into their brain and think or remember they heard something that might help them in that situation. So orientation programs, I think, does a great job of really setting our students up for success to make sure that they have all the support they need. And then the last thing I would say is maybe just the simple fact that I always say our students, they work hard and they play hard. And Purdue students are just super involved. They're super engaged. And we know with anything, right? The more engaged you are, the harder it is to leave. And I think by, students having many opportunities to get engaged on our campus, whether that be in clubs and organizations or Greek life or with student employment, our students are finding ways to be engaged and involved on our campus community or within our campus community. And I think that really helps them stay connected to Purdue and returning year over year.
Well, Purdue is obviously laser focused, as you put it, on their students who work hard and play hard. You provide any and all supports for your students and even use AI to do so, which is so innovative. That's amazing to add to your overall community. So we appreciate that overview, Megan. And so, since the last time that we spoke, what can you share with us that has changed in terms of your application review process?
Not a lot has changed, but also a whole lot has changed, I guess, if that makes sense. So, we continue to use a really robust holistic review process that considers all factors that are included in the student's application for admission, including all of the writing samples, the academic components, students' activities, honors, and awards. All of that is still fully considered and an important piece of the review process. But certainly what has changed, and I think, this was a pretty big change in our world here in higher education, is the fact that we're no longer legally able to use race as one of many factors in our admission decision making process. It always was just one of many factors, certainly never the only factor considered. But now, we're not able to use that, but we still are, again, really focused on the information that's provided in the application for admission, spending all the time necessary reading about the students, understanding their environment, the context around their learning environment, how they've grown up. So all of the information that students provide to us in their application, it's always been important, but it's even more important now that we're sure to really take the time that's necessary to get to know these students through the information that they share with us in their application for admission.
Well, thank you for emphasizing the importance of that essay. As we know, there's multiple parts to the application. The transcript, obviously, that's your grades, the activities, those are what you took part of outside of the classroom. But that essay student is really where you need to focus in terms of letting the admissions representatives know who you are, what drives you, and how you plan on contributing when you come on campus at Purdue University. So, Megan, I know that you do a lot of panel discussions as part of your work in admissions. And one of the many items that I know that you speak about is the idea of providing parents with tactical advice in terms of how they could support their child through the process. So, what tactical advice do you have for parents to help them better support their children?
Yeah. So this is a question I hear a lot, is kind of what is the role of the parent? How can, as a parent, you help your student through this process? So one of the things I always like to say is that, sometimes you might hear a student should always call the admission office. A student should always email the admission office. Certainly, we love to hear from students, but we're open from 8 to 5 typically. It's hard to get a hold of us on the phone if your student is in school all day and likely has some kind of activity after school. So I think that the parent can help fill in the gap, right? If your family is really circling around a question, you can't figure out how to get it answered, pick up the phone and call us. Please do not spend days and days trying to figure out how to approach a situation or what the answer to a question might be. Pick up the phone and call us, whether it's a parent or a student. So we're really happy to have parents connect with us as you're helping your student navigate this process. I also think parents, you're really good at scheduling. So helping get things scheduled, campus visits scheduled, the family calendar really well. So your student, of course, should be driving the conversation about where those campus visits should be. But then, of course, the parents, I think a great role for them is getting those scheduled. Another thing to think about is really helping your student brag in the application. Students, for some reason, they don't brag about themselves when they're applying to college, and it's like the most important place for them to brag about themselves. So I think parents really helping your student remember all the cool things that they've done throughout high school, honors and awards they've received. Those are really important aspects of the application and areas where parents have great insight into those pieces. So I think that's really an important part for parents, is helping students make sure that they're putting their best foot forward and telling the story that's most impactful about who they are as individuals.
Well, we appreciate that. So, obviously, parents, if there's a question that is not easily found on the university website, please call. As Megan said, they're happy to take your call between 8 and 5 p.m. Also, help your child to brag. Really, it's an opportunity for them to brag and to talk about all of the great things that they did, not only in the classrooms, but beyond. So, we appreciate that, Megan. And of course, visiting campus is an important part of the college process. If you can't visit before applying, it's advisable to visit before matriculating, as nothing can fully replace the sense of belonging that you feel or not when you are physically on a college campus. So, Megan, what tips can you offer in terms of maximizing the college visit?
Yeah, I would start by saying maybe even taking a step back, especially if you're a parent of a ninth or a 10th grade student and you're just maybe starting to think about college. Depending on where you're located, think about what colleges and universities of varying sizes and types are really close by to you. So if your student is interested in, we'll use Purdue as an example, is there another large public university close to you that you could just expose your student to? See how they feel before you hop on a plane to visit Purdue, for example. Visit your local college or university that might be similar in nature to really see how that feels. So I think that's one really important thing. I also think, too, as families are doing summer vacations or spring break vacations and they're traveling, sneak in those college visits, drive through a campus, maybe stop and eat lunch on a college campus or near a college campus so you can get the vibe. So there's really easy ways to explore colleges and universities without full-blown campus visits. But then during a true campus visit, we really want students to have organic experiences. Of course, they'll have kind of a curated experience through an admission office, an admission presentation, a tour led by a student tour guide. But also think about doing things with people who aren't paid by the Office of Admissions, right? And so that might be sitting in the student union and talking to a stranger about their Purdue experience or their college experience where they are. That might mean grabbing the student newspaper. You will get no other no look more honest than one in a college campus newspaper. They are very honest about what's happening on the campus community. So grabbing a student newspaper, also visiting campus on random days. Don't pick the day where the most exciting thing is happening on that college campus. Don't visit an SEC school on a Saturday that's a football game. Like, you're going to love it on that day, right? So pick a different day, maybe like a Tuesday. My friend who works at an SEC school always says that. Visit us on a Tuesday, not a Saturday. And I love that example, or love that guidance. And then I would also say, maybe more tactically, schedule early. Colleges and universities fill up fast with campus visits. So if you are wanting to visit a campus, would highly encourage you to schedule those visits early. And then the other thing is, if you are in the process of what I would call the whirlwind college tours, where you're visiting multiple campuses throughout a week, really find a way to organize yourself, because by the time that week is over, everything is going to blur together. So when you leave each university, make sure you have an opportunity to jot down some notes, things that will help jog your memory, things that you loved, maybe things that you didn't love, so that everything, when it starts to blend together, you can refer back to those notes to remember those experiences. So those are some of the things that I would recommend when thinking about maximizing the campus visit.
Well, I'm glad I asked the question as you gave some great advice. First of all, start locally. Doesn't matter, students, if you plan on staying home or not. Start with colleges that are a drive away from your home. This will help you determine whether you want a big school, small school, and in fact, whether or not you want to be close or not. In addition, when you're on family vacations, take a pit stop and visit a local college that you're seeing on the highway. And of course, when you're on that campus, speak to the random student. Of course, the tour guides are phenomenal, but they are trained to show you the best of the best. Go to the student union, speak to a random student, go to a coffee shop off campus and see if there are students there so that you get a different feel in terms of what the campus offers. And lastly, stay organized. I remember doing it with my own daughters. We went on those trips where we would visit 5, 6, 7 schools, and it does get confusing. You do forget. So make yourself a spreadsheet. Keep organized, write down what you liked, what you didn't like. So, again, Megan, we appreciate it. In our last episode, you spoke about not using the GPA listed on the transcript, as there are so many high schools, as we know, and they all have their own way of calculating GPAs and, whether they weigh certain courses or not. Obviously, Megan, the transcript is the most important piece of the overall application review in terms of the academic picture. Can you walk us through what are you looking for when reviewing the transcript, and how does it differ? For example, if one student intends to be an engineering major, while another wants to pursue a major in agriculture, does how you approach the transcript review differ for each of these students? And if so, how?
Great question. We get this a lot because Purdue is a direct admit university. So students are applying directly to a major and we're evaluating them through the lens of that major. So the approach to evaluating the transcript doesn't change from major to major. So we're starting by evaluating what courses did the student take, how challenging were those courses, and what grades did the student earn in those courses. And then we're looking at that in the context of the offerings within their high school environment. So did their high school offer multiple AP or IB courses? Did their high school offer not many at all? So that we can understand the opportunities that students have. So that's consistent across majors. We're looking for at those specific things or considering those things. But then as we do the deep dive into the courses the student took and the grades earned, that's when we really start to consider the major the student applied to. So for us, all of the grades are important for all of the majors, but certain grades are more important for some specific majors. So of course, for things like engineering and computer science, we're looking at grades in math and science, as well as the courses the student has chosen to take in those specific areas, and not just what they've taken and is on their transcript in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, but also what they plan or intend to take in their 12th grade year, because that senior year is so important to us. So for STEM areas, it's math and science. Certainly for liberal arts, we're going to be focused on the social science and the English grades, but all the grades are important, but again, some become more important based on the major the student's applying to.
Well, that's fantastic. And thank you for reminding everyone that Purdue is a direct admit school. And we appreciate the examples, such as if you're going for engineering or computer science. Obviously, math and science are very important in that review, including students, the work that you do in senior year. So, Megan, some majors, such as studio arts, require a portfolio to be submitted. What can you share about what you are looking for in the portfolio? And what advice would you provide students who are putting together a portfolio as part of their overall application?
Yeah, so at Purdue, we leave the portfolio review to the experts. So faculty in those academic units do that portfolio review. And it's really an added layer onto the holistic review that we use for every student that we've discussed here. I know in my episodes, I'm sure other episodes as well have talked about holistic review for those individual institutions. So, there's that piece, the holistic review. But what we don't see and where the portfolio really fills in the gap is a student's artistic abilities, a student's creativity, really wanting to see the various forms of creative expression that this student has and is wanting to put forth for faculty to evaluate. So some of the things that are really important, I asked my good colleague in the College of Liberal Arts about this question, and the feedback was so focused on making sure that the student is putting their work in the best possible light. So, that might mean making sure that if you're, working on, if scale matters, right? If scale matters, include a picture that shows the work in relationship to another object, for example, making sure that the lighting is correct. So, it's not just how creative are you, but it's making sure that you're showcasing that, because I'm not physically able to touch the information, what you've created. And so it's, really making sure that in that portfolio, you're putting it forth in a way that our art faculty are able to evaluate it the way that you would want them to evaluate it. So, those are some kind of practical things. But again, it's really the portfolio review for us is really a way for our art faculty to determine what that creativity and artistic ability really is. And us in admissions are not the expert in that area.
Understood. And what about after school activities or clubs? Megan, I know you mentioned in our last conversation that you're really looking for anything, but are there certain clubs or activities that can enhance a student's application based, again, on their intended major? And if so, can you share some examples?
Yeah, so again, there's no magic combination of clubs or organizations, but I will say that students who have had an opportunity to engage in clubs or organizations related to their major, that is a way for the student to demonstrate their interest in that particular major. So it helps us understand that they're committed. A student who wants to become a pilot, who spent their free time earning their private pilot's license, that tells us that this student is pretty dedicated to becoming a pilot. They already have this interest. They didn't wake up the day they applied and picked professional flight. They've spent a large amount of time really engaged in that future career. So I will say that it's nice to see students who have had the opportunity to pursue clubs and organizations or activities that relate to the major, but we certainly don't expect it. Another area where it can assist in the application review process, for Purdue, we have a place where students essentially tell us why they're interested in a particular major. And if a student has been able to explore that particular major through a club or an organization, maybe part-time work or research as a high school student, they can really speak about why they're so interested in that particular major because they've had this practical experience. But I want to say I say all of that while also saying that we understand that 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students are still just trying to figure out who they are and what they like and what they don't like and where their skills and interests are. So we don't want to discourage students from exploring themselves, from exploring things that might be new to them. That's what we're going to ask them to do in college. So we want that. We are happy to see students who have spent time just exploring a wide variety of things to get a sense about what their interests might be. So I really could argue that both ways. I do think I see benefit in both, but I think that specific to clubs or organizations related to the major the student's interested in addition to listing that on the activities, the student needs to think about how they can talk about those experiences in the application in a way that helps us understand they really know what this major is about and they've really spent some time thinking about this major as a good fit for them.
Well, that's a great answer. I really appreciate it. And Megan, in our last episode, you also spoke about how a student's college essay is the one place that really gives you insight into their personality, which is not so easily found, again, in other parts of the application. I also know that Purdue asks applicants for supplemental essays. During the podcast episodes, it's come up often how the supplemental essay is your opportunity, students, to demonstrate your understanding of the institution you are applying to while explaining where you see yourself in their program, why you see yourself there, and perhaps how you intend to contribute. So, Megan, what are your thoughts on the purpose of the supplemental essay, and what advice could you provide students getting ready to write them?
We could probably have a whole podcast episode on my thoughts about this, but I can boil it down to maybe a few key things. So the first main thing that I always like students to understand is this is one of the main areas where students can differentiate themselves. So students applying, lots of them, are really strong academic students. Academically, everyone often looks pretty similar, even the brightest students applying to the university. So the essay and the supplemental essays are really a way for students to begin to differentiate themselves. So I just spoke about the why you're interested in a particular major, how clubs and activities related to that major kind of help demonstrate your interest in that major. This is also a great place, at least at Purdue. We ask students to tell us, why are you interested in Purdue? So if you came on the campus visit, how did it make you feel? What did you like about that? Did you meet someone who really felt like those are my people, right? That's my place. I felt super comfortable on that campus. So what is it that you want us to know? And this is a place to differentiate yourself. The other thing that I tell students is don't write what you think we want to know. I promise you it's probably not what we want to know. What we want you to write is about what you want to tell us. So a rule of thumb that I always use to help students maybe think about what to write in these supplemental essays, specific to, why a particular major or why a particular university. What would you tell your neighbor or your grandparent if they asked you that question? I suspect you would give them a very authentic answer. You wouldn't begin rattling off rankings or other things like that. You would give them an authentic answer. And that's what we want you to put in those supplemental essays. So thinking about how to really differentiate yourself in the application, and those essays really are an important way to do that.
Well, that's a great answer. I'm really happy that I asked it. So thank you so much, Megan. And you also spoke in the last episode about how applying early action has many benefits, including scholarships and consideration into your honors college. What are the requirements for students to make the most of your scholarship offerings and for being considered into the honors program?
So, applying early action at Purdue really is the main way to be fully considered for the most merit scholarships that we have to award. Nothing extra. And the holistic review that we use for admission is used for merit scholarships. The honors college application does have two additional honors college questions. So, I would encourage, and that's baked right into the application. I would encourage students to really research and understand what Purdue's honors college is all about. It's different than honors in high school, and it's important that students understand that and can weave that into those honors college essays so that the honors college understands that the student really does know what the honors college is about and that it's a good fit for the student. So back to one of your earlier questions about students staying at Purdue, students finding the right fit in all of these areas, academically and otherwise, is a big and important component of that. So we want students in the honors college who want to be in the honors college and who find it to be a good home for them. So applying early action ensures consideration for merit scholarships in our honors college. We do have some really high merit scholarships that are only available to students who apply to the honors college. So that's an added bonus or benefit to applying to the honors college, being in consideration for those invite only high merit scholarships as well. And then I don't know, we don't talk about it a lot, but certainly applying by November 1st, our early action date, and then coupled with applying for Purdue, it's a priority FAFSA, free application for federal student aid, filing date of the 15th of February this year. That really puts students in the mix for the large majority of scholarships that we have to award. So we would encourage students to do those few key things to make sure that they're maximizing all of their scholarship opportunities.
Well, we appreciate that. And you mentioned that the honors program at Purdue is obviously different than honors in high school. Do you mind just elaborating a little bit on that, Megan?
Yeah, definitely. So in high school, students take honors or AP classes because they want to go deeper into a particular subject area. Whereas honors at Purdue is really more about breadth. It's an interdisciplinary community of scholars. So it's about students who have a wide array of interests. Of course, they'll study a particular major, they'll get depth in that particular major by studying it. But they're students who really want this interdisciplinary educational experience. They'll live in an honors residential community. So be with other students in a wide array of majors, students who have different backgrounds and interests from themselves to create that interdisciplinary community of scholars. And then our honors college students also do a thesis or a scholarly project. I just learned about one of my new favorite honors college research projects right now. There's a student, we have a cat cafe in downtown Lafayette, and a student is researching the hierarchy of the cats at the cat cafe. So what happens when the top cat gets adopted out? What does the hierarchy look like once that happens? And I love that example because I think sometimes Purdue has this reputation as just like really, we're very research focused, we're very STEM heavy, but we're also like cool and quirky, right? And so I love that because it's like we're doing research, but we're doing research about this thing that's very cool and very interesting and it's unique to that student. I couldn't even tell you what that student's major is. I promise we don't have anything related to cats as a major. And so I think that just helps tell the story about the sorts of research projects that students might find that they can pick anything. And so that's what Purdue students are doing in honors when it comes to their research project or their scholarly research.
Well, that's awesome. And again,
Yeah.
it definitely sounds like there's something for everyone, both in your classrooms and beyond. I love that. And you spoke earlier, and by the way, even in episode 74, how not letting up as a senior is really important. You also provided an example in our last conversation whereby a student intending to major in nursing really needs to have that fourth year of science in senior year. What other advice, Megan, would you give students in terms of courses they are taking as they enter senior year?
Yeah. I like to tell students that are approaching their senior year, working on that senior year schedule, to look at that senior year as an opportunity. Look at it as an opportunity to prepare themselves for college to prepare themselves to take courses that might seem hard or scary, because that obstacle is an opportunity for them to know how hard they can work, how much they can learn, maybe find an area of interest that they didn't even know they had. I know of a student who kind of took AP computer science reluctantly in 12th grade because it was the course that would look best on the transcript for that particular student, but they were really nervous about it. And in the end, the student ended up loving the course, ended up really deciding that they had an interest in computer science and that that was something that they were going to explore when they got to college. But initially, that was an obstacle, but the student was able to turn that into an opportunity. And so really encouraging students to challenge themselves, because that's what's going to set them up for success when they get to college. The courses that they'll take in college are not all going to be easy. They're not all going to be things that they already have a bit of understanding about. And so really that senior year schedule is a great way for students to set themselves up for success when it gets to college. We're in Indiana, it's a sports state. And I always like to compare this to, our initial basketball games. Right at the start of the season, we'll play teams like Arizona or Kansas, but we'll also play teams that you may have never heard of before, because we want to challenge ourselves. We want to know if we can beat a school like Arizona or Kansas or Alabama, but we also want to make sure that we can polish and refine some of the things that we should be doing well and right before we get into our conference play. And so thinking about the senior year schedule, just like you think about crafting a basketball schedule to really prepare for kind of prime time for the NCAA tournament, for conference season, you're challenging yourselves a little, and then you're also taking courses that allows you to polish and refine. So really that senior year schedule is super important. And we're giving, part of it is we're giving you a bit of credit for just being willing to challenge yourself, because in many cases we'll make an admission decision before we see those grades in the senior year. So you're getting a little bit of credit for being willing to do the hard work in 12th grade.
Well, that's great advice. And I love the analogy from senior year to your athletics program, which is one of the best in the country and beyond. So continue to challenge yourself, students, obviously, in senior year, as it will help set you up for success once you're in college. So, Megan, I know that Purdue obviously is a public institution in the great state of Indiana. Is there a maximum percentage of students that you can accept who are from out of state? And how else does the application process differ for in-state and your out-of-state students?
Yeah, so I'll start with the last question that you asked. The process doesn't differ at all for in-state and out-of-state students. It looks exactly the same for both. We are not required to admit or enroll a certain percentage from the state of Indiana. So our legislature does not require us to have a certain percentage of students from the state, but we are a land grant institution. So there is a bit of importance for us to ensure that we're maintaining a majority of students, or as close to a majority of students as possible, from the great state of Indiana. And so for the last many years, we've hovered right around 50% of our students being from the state of Indiana, and that continues to be important for us, again, as a land grant institution. But I will say that admission for non-resident students is more selective. We just have far more students applying from other states than we do from the state of Indiana. So it's literally a supply and demand situation. So admission is more selective for our non-resident students than it is for our resident students, not by a lot, but certainly by a measurable percentage. And then the other thing that I would say is that selectivity is really focused in just a couple of areas: computer science, engineering, professional flight nursing. We don't see that a similar spread across all majors at Purdue between resident and non-resident. So, no, we're not required to have a certain percentage, but it is important to us as a land grant institution to maintain that, 50% or so students from Indiana.
Well, we appreciate that. And for those listeners that might not know, what exactly does it mean when you're a land grant institution?
Sure, yeah. So the university was established as part of the Morrell Land Grant Act to essentially teach the mechanical arts So that for agriculture and mechanical arts. So that in today's terms is really agriculture, which Purdue has a really robust College of Agriculture. I mentioned that earlier in the episode. And then we also, of course, mechanical arts would be what you know today as engineering. So the things that Purdue has really been known for years and years, that's really part of our land grant history. So established as part of the Morrell Land Grant Act.
Well, thank you so much, Megan. We appreciate that. And this, of course, has been a phenomenal conversation, a great follow through from episode 74. So, Megan, is there a question I didn't ask or a topic I didn't bring up that you wish to share with us now?
The big thing that I always like to talk about when talking about Purdue specifically is that we are certainly well known for STEM. And that really is that's a big driver of our campus community. But there are so many majors at Purdue. So for a student just looking to be part of a big place with a strong reputation and a wide variety of academic interests and students from really everywhere, all corners of the world, Purdue really has something for everyone. So lots of opportunity here at our university for sure.
Well, we appreciate that. And again, this has been a great conversation. I'm really thankful to you for coming back to record with me. Unfortunately, Megan, it does lead us to the last question, which is what are your top three pieces of advice you would provide students and their parents getting ready for the college admissions process?
Yeah, so the first one really is open communication. I think it's really important that parents and students are open with each other about this process. Everything from the finances, what is the parent willing and able to provide to support the student when they go to college? I think the worst thing is when a student has done all the things we ask them to do. They apply, they're offered admission, they get a financial aid award package, and then the family says, oh, but we're only prepared to pay X number of dollars and this school is going to cost this much. So I think that open communication about cost and expectations, both for parents and for the students, is really important. I also think that it's important for both students and parents to be open-minded. Open-minded about the opportunities that the student wants to explore academically, open-minded about the places that the student is interested in. We all tend to gravitate towards things that we know or things that are familiar, but there are so many amazing colleges and universities out there. And so encouraging students and parents to be open to checking out places that might have all the things that the student is looking for, but maybe it's not the school that you see on a lot of bumper stickers, or it's not the school that you're most familiar with within your family, but it might be the school that's the right fit for the student. It might be the school that allows your student to stay there for 4 years because everything just feels right. And so that open-mindedness about, where and what the student wants to study, I think is so important. And then the last thing, and I likely said this before, I'll probably say it 100 more times in different things different places where I'll speak, is that there are parts of this process that students and parents just simply can't control. So students and parents, students specifically, they could literally do everything right. They could do all the things we ask them to do, take all the right classes, get all the right grades, super scores on their standardized tests. But there are pieces of the process that they can't control. They can't control priorities of the institution. They can't control how many spaces are available or what the rest of the applicants applying to that university look like. So it's really important for students and parents to understand that, they need to have a variety of colleges and universities that they're interested in. They need to be excited and in love with a couple options because some things, and this is maybe the first time in the student's entire life that they haven't been able to just work harder, just do more to get what they want because some of this process is just out of their control. So I think the sooner students can understand that, it's a great life lesson, thinking about overcoming obstacles and being able to pivot when things don't go exactly as planned certainly is something that will prepare students well for life. But sometimes this process is the first time that happens for a student. And so I think being ready for that or being prepared for that is really important for students and parents alike.
Well, those are great answers. Obviously, open communication is key, specific to so many things, but of course, the cost, how much a family is able and willing to pay is such an important conversation to have early in the process so that, like you said, you don't have a student that gets accepted only to realize that, the family can't afford it or is not willing to pay that high of a ticket price. Also, keep an open mind. There are so many schools, over 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States alone. There is a school for every single student. In fact, there's more than one school for every single student, but not every school is necessarily for you. So it's important to have an open mind, take your research, stop worrying about the sticker on the back of the SUV. And of course, control what you can control and understand that there are things that you're not going to be able to control, such as institutional needs or priorities. So, Megan, this was a phenomenal conversation. Again, I can't thank you enough, as I know that this is going to help so many students and their parents as they navigate through the college admissions process.
Great. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone, and good luck out there. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The CAP. Thank you for listening to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success.